Hello everyone and welcome back to the SULS podcast. As I always like to say at the beginning of these episodes now, I hope everyone is keeping well and I hope we're enjoying the last few weeks of our summer before semester time rolls around in a few weeks' time. And yeah, I suppose I might as well mention that on the 14th of September, Tuesday the 14th in Freshers Week, we're going to be at the Freshers Fair from 10 until 4. We're going to have a lovely little stall there with all of our graphics, all of our past events, all our upcoming events, and some lovely freebies for you all as well. So if you want to come along, if maybe you've never interacted with us before, you kind of want to find out more about the committee or the society in general, or maybe you want to meet the committee for the first time, whatever it may be, definitely pop along and say hello. It'll be absolutely amazing to get to meet you and speak to you in person after 18 months of not being able to do that very much. It'll be so nice to be back on campus and see some friendly faces and some new faces as well. But yeah, for this episode, I wanted to invite our amazing president, Claire Welsh, back on. She was obviously on a lot last series, and I'm sure it won't be her only appearance on the podcast for series 2. And yeah, I wanted to get Claire on to kind of discuss our summer school, which, if you didn't know, has been taking place over the past 2 weeks. Started on the 16th of August, and wanted to kind of find out from Claire's perspective what the main ideas were behind the summer school, what were the main objectives of a 2-week programme, and kind of find out what her highlights were. And I wanted to get Claire on specifically because Claire put in so much effort and so much work to get the summer school up and running. It's not just a case of thinking of an idea and organise a Zoom call and hoping for the best. There was a lot of planning, a lot of scheduling, kind of figuring out which events would take place when, who's going to run which workshop, and obviously reaching out to external speakers to come and help. You had Shirley Miller, you also had Neil Campbell as well. It's not just a case of us speaking to students, it's not as simple as that. And we actually received some nice praise from Abertay Law Society for putting the summer school on, and it seemed like quite a big task, and it definitely was. It's no small feat putting on a 2-week programme trying to help first year law students settle into their course, but I think we did a good job. And yeah, Claire speaks very well in this episode about kind of why she wanted to do it. And yeah, I suppose I should probably stop rambling and just let you listen to the episode. But before we jump in, please, if you're not subscribed or you're not following on your podcast platform of choice, please consider doing so. It really does help us out and help us grow the podcast and reach new audiences. And ultimately, that's what we want to be doing as much as possible for Series 2. But without further ado, I hope you enjoy.
Welcome to the Stirling University Law Society podcast, proudly sponsored by Ashurst Advance, creating client value through advanced thinking. Now, over to your host and Vice President, Jedd France.
Claire, welcome back to the podcast, your first appearance of the new series. I'm sure it's going to be the first of many, I hope. So before we jump into today's show, I just want to ask how your summer has been so far.
Oh, it's been so nice. Thank you for asking and thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's been like a really nice balance, I think, of lots of planning and organising for the next academic year, and also just enjoying some time at home, some time not doing law work. So yeah, it's been great. What about you?
No, yeah, mine has been great as well. Thanks for asking. It's been great. I've like yourself, I've been busy with society stuff. Obviously, we've been planning ahead, as has been mentioned on the podcast before. We've been busy over the summer, still putting on some events and stuff. So it's been a nice balance. Obviously, not having the burden of uni work and assignments and exam has been very welcomed over the summer period, and the weather as well has been absolutely sensational. Myself and Hayley mentioned that last week. The weather has been rather surprising for Scotland. I think normally we get maybe 3 days during the summer, then it's raining the rest of the time. So the fact we've had weeks and weeks of sunshine has been really nice, a nice change. It's been good to kind of get out and about and actually do things again now that the restrictions are starting to ease and we're not all locked up in our flats and houses 7 days a week. So yeah, it's been really, really good, but I'm looking forward to semester coming back around and getting back into uni work. And I suppose our summer school, which we're here to speak about the highlights of the summer school, that's kind of a big part. That's that kind of bridge between summer and going back to university or going to uni for the first time for the freshers who we were obviously targeting with the summer school. So before we jump into the workshops and the different events that we had for a summer school, Claire, would you like to just give us a brief insight into how the whole idea for the summer school came about and what the main objectives of it were?
Yeah, definitely. So I think kind of last year, meaning the end of kind of the previous committee, myself, Jedd, obviously yourself, Neil Brannigan, who's the last vice president, and Ewan Steinbach, previous president, we kind of talked about it as an idea, and we just thought it would be a really nice way to kind of introduce the freshers to ourselves, kind of make ourselves a little bit more visible for them, especially in the virtual world. And I think, yeah, just kind of putting people's minds at ease a little bit, I guess, as well, because I think as a fresher, there's so much information kind of thrown at you, and it can definitely be very overwhelming. And I always find myself that kind of speaking to students who have done it all before is quite a comforting perspective, as opposed to kind of hearing everything from lecturers and academics, because there's just definitely more of a kind of blend between us and the freshers, I would say. And then we've also got good relationships with a lot of the lecturers, so it's nice because we're kind of an in-between and we can relay information kind of between the both. So yeah, I think the objectives was just to kind of give people an idea into what first year at uni is like, an idea of what freshers is like, an idea of what the Law Society does, like a kind of range of the things that we are interested in, and kind of, I suppose, like a little snapshot into what the next year will look like for them. So yeah.
Yeah, it was, my thinking behind the summer school was like, I always thought if I had this option when I was going into first year, it would have been so useful, because I remember getting a bus into my first day in Freshers Week where you have your whole inductions and stuff, and I was going in completely blind as to how it was going to run, what is involved. I didn't even know there was a student law society at the time. So I feel like this summer school, the objectives of it and idea behind it were so useful, and it really was like a good idea. And I'm just so proud that we actually executed it and managed to get on board with it all, and the committee got behind it, and it was really, really interesting. It was beneficial for us to put on as well, because obviously it's nice to meet the incoming freshers and feel like you're playing a big role in their kind of development and helping them settle in to their course and university life as soon as possible and as good as possible. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good idea, and I suppose we can start to dive into some of the highlights. So I think it only makes sense to start on the first day, which was Monday the 16th of August, and this was our icebreaker session. So it's basically just an introduction as to who the committee are, what the society is, what we do, and just kind of have that kind of informal session where we can meet those that were interested in summer school and different freshers and stuff. So for you, Claire, what was the overriding feeling on the first day of the summer school? Was it excitement? Was it nerves? How did you feel going into that first session?
I think it was probably a bit of both, to be honest. I think it was really good in the sense that obviously it was lovely to meet some of the freshers and kind of, I suppose, kind of get an idea of what their concerns are. Because I think the thing is, for me, because first year was such a long time ago, I mean, not such, that makes me sound like I'm really old, but because it was like long enough ago, you kind of forget what your concerns were. And it's so funny because speaking to the freshers, they kind of will ask you questions and you're like, oh, I completely kind of forgot about that, or kind of, you know, their worries and questions are completely different to what we would kind of guess that they would be, I suppose. So I think it was just like a nice way to kind of reassure them, but also kind of, it was a good way, it's a good thing for us to reflect on and think, okay, moving forward, what events can we do to help them if this is what they're worried about. So yeah, and I think as well we have got kind of the COVID makes everything a bit different, so it was kind of interesting to hear about, you know, their concerns going from school to university in a kind of post-COVID world. And I suppose for us, you know, every year's had a different experience. So for you, Jedd, obviously you kind of spent your second year, I spent my third year. You know, everyone is in a different position, so everyone naturally has different kind of needs and worries that we as a society can help with. So yeah, I think it was a mix between kind of nerves and excitement, but definitely a feeling of reassurance after. So
yeah, and it was really interesting for me hearing some of the questions, because like you say, we've been on this course for a few years now, and you become just so accustomed to like legal language and how the uni works and how your course works that you don't really think that incoming students don't know some of the stuff, and you'd be mentioning the things and they'd be like, whoa, what is that? And you're like, oh yeah, sorry, I should actually explain what this is. So it's good to really strip back the knowledge, and even from a personal point of view, it's nice to to see when you get those questions that like, oh, I've actually learned a lot and I actually do know quite a lot of stuff that goes on. And because, like I said, we'll just kind of fall into this pattern of doing all these different modules and doing essays and exams and stuff. It's nice to kind of reflect and think, do you know what, since I've come into this course, I actually have took on a lot of knowledge and, you know, can be that kind of person that people can go to who have concerns, especially first years, and really try and guide them as best as possible. Because ultimately, like you mentioned, we could have got a lot of lecturers in to speak to them, but we thought it's probably better to get a student's perspective, because ultimately that's the only people that have lived it and have been through it before. And I think it's nice to get that perspective, and there's definitely things that we can tell them that the faculty and different lecturers wouldn't be able to tell them because they haven't lived in our shoes and done the course at Stirling. So yeah, it was really good to meet them for the first time. And moving on to the first proper workshop, which was on the Tuesday the 17th, that was our introduction to legal concepts with our Honorary Vice President, Neil Brannigan, who Claire mentioned before. And this was, I found this really interesting because Neil had this really good PowerPoint and workshop that he delivers to different people across the legal industry and teaches them about the fundamentals and the basics of contract law and how contracts are formed and what kind of role they play in different transactions and in the legal industry in general. And I found it really interesting because it takes you back to first year and you're testing yourself the knowledge that you learned a couple of years ago. And I was surprised at how well I did. And Claire, I know you were involved in the planning and stuff, so how did you find that workshop? Did you think it was interesting as well, going back to contract law and trying to remember all the different terminology and stuff?
Yeah, I definitely did. I thought it was really interesting. I thought that the way Neil kind of set it up, it was good that it was very interactive, and the freshers could get involved and, you know, didn't feel silly for asking a question or getting something wrong. It was a really nice, relaxed environment. So I think it was a really good kind of, I suppose, does what it says on the tin, introduction to legal concepts. But yeah, I did find it interesting, and I think that you kind of, obviously, you do contract in your first semester, and it's very much a foundation knowledge for a lot of the modules going forward. So I found it quite interesting kind of thinking back to that and how it applies to all of the different modules that I've done since then. And I think it's interesting because if you finish the LLB and you go on to do the diploma, I know that when you do your diploma you kind of revisit some of those concepts. I suppose it's a similar thing. It's quite funny kind of looking back and being like, oh, I remember that, I remember this. So yeah, it was a nice refresher for us, and I think that for the freshers it's definitely just kind of a good introduction, and I suppose kind of going in having a little bit of an idea what some of the terminology means is always a benefit.
No, yeah, definitely. And I think we have to give a shout out to a certain Henry Lumsden, who was an ever present at our workshops, and he absolutely smashed the contract side of things in this workshop. And so as someone who's coming from high school and who's not studied law before, his own kind of, I don't know what the word is, but his own instinct when it came to contracts and how they work and stuff, like, it was just throwing ideas out there, and a lot of the time it was like, yeah, you're on the right track there. And it was really nice to see that, and it was nice to watch him, you know, kind of get confidence from that, the fact that he was, you know, being confident enough to mention things that he was thinking and his own ideas, and it turned out to be right, and it kind of gave him more and more confidence as the workshop went on to continue to throw his ideas out there. And yeah, it was really, really nice. I know he took a lot from that, and again, it was really special for us to be able to put that on. And I know for Henry and the other freshers that attended, they'll definitely be in a much better position by the time contract law comes around, because it really did just kind of provide an overview as to the fundamentals. And I think that's always beneficial when you go into because it's literally one of the first modules you'll do on the LLB, so it definitely provides that foundation knowledge that will help you succeed on that module and just on the law degrees moving forward. So fast forward in a couple of days to Thursday the 19th. Now this was, honestly, it was probably my highlight of the whole summer school. It was our workshop with Neil Campbell, who does a lot of work with the O-shaped lawyer group, which is a very special initiative for me, and I think Neil is such a gentleman. And yeah, Neil, this is Claire, this is obviously your contact, and you organised this for us. So do you want to give us a bit of a background as to who Neil is and what the workshop was about?
Of course, yeah. So Neil is managing legal counsel at NatWest, and he's in the outsourcing and IP team. And yeah, he is absolutely great. I think he's such a lovely guy, and I think that one of the best things, he's so genuine, and he's very kind of just, you know, down to earth, normal, grounded, and I think that's so refreshing, because especially for first years, sometimes it can be scary to kind of network and to speak to people in the profession, because you have this kind of preconceived idea that everyone's going to be really scary and, you know, is going to look down on you, and it's not like that at all. And I suppose that's part of the O-shaped lawyer group, is that, you know, lawyers should be rounded individuals, and, you know, there's as much merit in your social skills as there is in your, you know, academic skills, and kind of just finding what your passions and interests are, and kind of, yeah, just like taking those and running with them, I suppose. So yeah, the idea was just to kind of give people a little insight into what the O-shaped lawyer group does, and I suppose to just kind of reassure people from the start of their degree that, you know, obviously you have to focus at university, you have to work as hard as you can, and, you know, getting grades is important, but on the flip side of that, you also have to, you know, work on other things and work on yourself as a person, and that, you know, personal development is really important as well. So yeah, I think that Neil's message was great, and I think he kind of just said to, you know, lean into the people in the O-shaped lawyer group. You know, they're on LinkedIn, they're on social media, like, have a look at what they are doing, what they're talking about, because it's really important messages. And I think we were talking in the event about how it's funny that everything kind of links into everything. So, you know, I had a conversation with somebody from the law school about mental well-being as students, and we ended up talking about the O-shaped program, and it's just, yeah, it's an interesting thing to get involved in. So I would say to anybody listening, definitely have a wee look on LinkedIn and social media at the O-shaped lawyer, because it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think what I took away from that workshop was just reassurance. I think as someone who, I wouldn't say I focus too much on academic excellence, and I lean into a lot of the other stuff like extracurricular stuff with the Law Society and networking and different stuff, and ultimately trying to develop personally as much as I am professionally as well. And I think hearing from him, you know, when it comes to interviewing people and stuff, like, you might have a first on an LLB, which means you're, you know, very well equipped in the legal field, but if you do not have the personal skills to fit in at that team or in that team and that culture that they've developed over many years at that specific workplace, then the chances of you succeeding there are very slim, and they will not just take you on because you've got a first. Ultimately, it's about what you develop around that, and I suppose that all comes back to the name of the program, which is O-shaped lawyers, about being well-rounded and not just being a legal robot, which is something that Neil mentioned on the night. And I think it's good to highlight other important qualities, like just all to do with emotional intelligence, you know, empathy, understanding people's different circumstances and stuff, and not just focusing on 100% legal stuff, because ultimately that's not what makes a successful legal professional. You do have to be well-rounded, and I really do just think it's a great initiative, and I would love to have Neil on the podcast at some point moving forward. So if Neil's ever listening, you're more than welcome to come on, Neil. You know, I'm definitely going to contact you moving forward, and we'd love to have you on to kind of put a spotlight on the whole O-shaped lawyer group, and yeah, just have a conversation about it all, because it's definitely beneficial, and I think it's something that a lot of people will benefit from hearing about. So that kind of brings us to an end of the first week. We obviously had our social on the Friday, which by that point I think we were all knackered, so it was nice to kind of end the week on a more chilled out note, sit down with the friends and the committee and stuff, and just chat about other things away from Law Society and summer school stuff. So at the end of that first week, Claire, how were you feeling? Were you tired? Were you still, you know, energized? And how did you just kind of go away from that first week feeling?
Yeah, I think I would agree with you that the O-shaped session was probably a highlight for me. And I felt like the first week had gone well, and, you know, it was nice kind of, I suppose when you meet freshers, it's always nice because it's quite exciting, and you kind of get yourself into their headspace of that kind of, oh, first year, you know, like all the kind of first. So yeah, I think I was feeling like obviously tired just from the week, but yeah, excited to kind of move forward, and I suppose just excited to get to Freshers Week as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a successful week, and I think by the time we got to the end, it was nice to have a little break and just kind of sit down with the committee and different people from the society and just relax, have a bit of a laugh, and, you know, just kind of enjoy ourselves after a very productive week. But moving into the second week, the first workshop of that week was our introduction to mooting skills with our mooting counsel, Angelique and Holly. And I think this is something that they're really focusing on this year, and it's something that society in general wants to promote and really kind of get off to a good start with, and that is having a kind of strong mooting presence around the society, and yeah, just try and compete on all different levels. And I know Holly and Angelique are very passionate about it, and they're actually really good at it as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they got on with that moving forward. And for myself who attended, it was nice to learn more about mooting. Obviously, I took part in one from a commercial law module in second year, but it was nice to hear more about the whole competitive side, because obviously my one was all online, and it was really just me talking to a webcam for 5 minutes. It wasn't really a full-on moot, because if it was, I'm pretty sure the lecturer or the judge or whoever maybe would interject at some point and be like, whoa, what are you saying there? You can't get away with saying that sort of thing, you know what I mean? So it was nice to hear about, and definitely if you're interested in mooting at some point moving forward, definitely keep an eye out on our Give It a Go and introductory sessions that will be coming as the semester rolls around, and you can kind of get a more kind of hands-on basic level understanding of what mooting is, and you can try it out before actually committing to getting involved in the whole competing side of stuff. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on if you're interested in that sort of thing. So moving on to Tuesday 24th was our commercial awareness workshop with myself, and I think it was really beneficial, Claire, because it was a super laid back discussion. It's something we highlighted during the workshop was the fact that commercial awareness is that buzzword that has gained more and more traction as the years go by, and employers really focus on it, and you get different people on LinkedIn trying to sell you workshops on commercial awareness. And it's, yeah, I think we, as a duo, myself and Claire, we just kind of wanted to highlight the fact that it's important not to fall into unnecessary rabbit holes when it comes to commercial awareness, because like you mentioned, there's people that might try and sell you things and try and like overanalyze exactly what sort of skills you need just to be any sort of legal professional. And yeah, it was just nice to provide a basic discussion about it. What do you think, Claire? Was there anything that you took away from that you found beneficial?
Yeah, I think it was just, I suppose it was kind of trying to debunk some of the myths around it. And I think that it's important because I think commercial awareness does look different to everybody. And I think that we were trying to, reassure the freshers that, it's not, you don't have to read the Financial Times every day. Or if you enjoy that, go for it. That's absolutely great. But yeah, there's loads of different ways that you can gain commercial awareness. And I think it was just kind of, I suppose it's getting back to that well-rounded individual that's kind of, informed in what's going on in the world. And then I think we kind of also discussed that, if you do have a particular interest in the commercial world, then 100% research into it, show people that you're passionate about it. So yeah, I think it was a good discussion. I think I always like kind of having debates with people about what they interpret commercial awareness to be, because I do think that everyone has a slightly different opinion on what they think it is. So yeah, no, I thought it was a really good discussion. I think that the freshers found it interesting. I mean, I think when I went into my first year, I wouldn't have known what commercial awareness was at all. I only really started hearing about it in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and like you mentioned with the Neil Campbell workshop that we had the previous Thursday, when I was sitting through that call with Neil and he was talking to us, a lot of the stuff he was saying linked into what I was going to mention for commercial awareness, and that when he's dealing with clients, he needs to understand the nature of their business, talk their language, and ultimately work with their best interests in mind and put himself in a position where he understands what they want, as opposed to just being this legal robot and only quoting statutes and sections of different legislation. He needs to actually understand, okay, what solution is this client wanting in their own personal scenario? Because you could have loads of different clients in the same area who work in the same field, but that doesn't mean that one solution is going to fit all of them. And really, it's just trying to treat people on a personal level, as opposed to it all comes back to being a legal robot and just seeing the law behind things. So it was really useful for me to listen to Neil and say, okay, I can mention that in my workshop, I can mention that. And yeah, I think the one that we had was just more of a basic discussion. But I think as time goes on and we move into the semester and people start working at uni and stuff, we're going to try and have a more kind of in-depth discussion and a workshop on commercial awareness, and try and put on some sort of workshop that will help everyone regardless of what field they want to go into. Because I feel like people who don't want to work in commercial law will probably think, commercial awareness, I don't really need to know about that. But for me, when I interpret commercial awareness, it all comes back to what Claire's saying. It kind of looks different for everyone. But for me, it's not just about commercial law, it's about whatever area of law or whatever business you want to work in. You're going to have some degree of commercial awareness and have different skills in your skill set. So yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye out for moving forward, and we'll definitely keep everyone posted on that as we kind of iron out the finer details. So yeah, that takes us on to the final one that we're going to highlight today, Claire, and that is the Oscola and essay writing class that we had with Shirley Miller, who's an academic librarian at the university, and she kind of took us through different tools that you can have on the library website and how to use the catalogue search function and how to navigate reading lists. And I know it's went through a bit of an update recently to the interface and stuff, so some of the features are new and some of the things have changed, and it was interesting to kind of see how it's going to look moving forward. And yeah, I found it really interesting. Claire, what about you? What did you take away from that workshop?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting as well. I thought it was it was good to see the new kind of functions on the website, because I think sometimes it can actually be quite confusing when you're looking at it yourself. Whereas when you watch somebody else do it, you kind of think, oh, okay, that makes sense, so that's why that's there. And Shirley was lovely. She was really open to questions, and I think we kind of agreed that moving forward we would like to do kind of more workshops with her on kind of using the library and IT resources, and on Oscola as a referencing style, because it's not easy, especially as a first year. It's really confusing. So I think that it would be nice to kind of keep that relationship with her as we move throughout the year, because I think that, I mean, I know myself, because I'm going into my fourth year and I've got my disc coming up, I'm going to have loads of questions, and I think having that relationship with somebody who can answer those questions is great. So I think it'll be really nice for the society kind of moving forward to have that relationship.
Yeah, it'll be so good to have the access to Shirley's knowledge, because she really is an expert when it comes to this stuff. So having her to hand when we need to find out anything is definitely an interesting contact to have in your little black book of contacts. So we're definitely going to try and keep that relationship with Shirley moving forward. And we did mention to her that as we approach kind of reading week and assignments crop up and people need to start thinking about them, we will try and do a kind of full-scale Oscola class, particularly for the first years, because obviously it'll be the first time you've had to probably use the Oscola referencing format, and the first time you've had to write assignments on your law course as well. So I think that's something to keep an eye out, and we'll keep you up to date with the details as we approach them. So yeah, I think that kind of brings us to a close, and I think personally, I just want to thank everyone who attended, whether it be committee, society members, or the new freshers. It was great to see both new and bringing back faces. It was really, really nice, and it was a really kind of good community feel, and there was definitely some nice vibes flowing around at all the different workshops. And I think I'd just like to also highlight the fact that if you weren't in attendance at the summer school and you kind of feel like you've missed out on some things, I wouldn't worry too much, because we are going to have our own stall at the Freshers' Fair. We're going to be there on Tuesday the 14th of September, so definitely get yourself along to that. We're going to have loads of interesting stuff there. You're going to be able to find out a lot more information about society and kind of what the benefits are to being a member of our wonderful society. So yeah, it's definitely exciting times, and thanks again to everyone who came along. Claire, do you have any final words that you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone who came along as well, and kind of for the enthusiasm that you all showed. It was great, and yeah, it's just made us even more excited for next year. And I think I'm personally buzzing to meet everyone at the Freshers' Fair. I think it's going to be really exciting and such a kind of nice atmosphere to kind of really feel like freshers again, because I suppose obviously the last couple of years has been difficult with COVID. So no, it's going to be lovely to meet everyone, and I would encourage anyone, even if you were in first year last year, like if you're going into your second year and you didn't get involved, like just come along. We're so happy to speak to any of you, and we would love any of you to get involved in the society.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo that. We're going to be there all day. I think is it 10 till 4?
Yeah, 10 till 4.
Yeah, so definitely come along, say hello. We're going to have some freebies there for you as well, different ways to sign up and stuff. So it's going to be a really, really fun, and like Claire mentioned, we're just really looking forward to meeting everyone, because we've obviously been locked up for the past 18 months, so no doubt we're going to be meeting second years for the first time as well, since they would have had their first year online. So it'll be really interesting to meet everyone in person for the first time. And yeah, and if anyone's going to any of the union events in Freshers Week, Definitely expect to see some of the committee members and different society members there as well, because we're definitely going to be there getting involved. It's not just for the freshers. We're looking forward to getting back out and about. We've been chained up in our flats and houses for the past 18 months, so we're going to let our hair down. We're going to be there. So if you bump into any of us, definitely say hi, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions and have any conversations that you're after. So yeah, again, thank you, Claire, for coming back on. Like I mentioned at the start, it's your first appearance, but if the first series is anything to go by, I'm sure you'll have multiple appearances on the podcast as we move forward. It's been a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you again for all your help and all your assistance on the summer school and getting it all sorted. It's been absolutely amazing, and yeah, look forward to hopefully having you back on the podcast soon.
Yay, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Stirling University Law Society podcast. Be sure to check out our website and social media pages through the links below.